Daniel walked into the pediatric ER carrying Mia Collins's son while our baby burned against my chest with a fever of 103.4. He saw me sitting under the harsh fluorescent lights, saw Noah's flushed cheeks and shaking fists, and still turned toward the nurse with another woman's child in his arms. In front of half the waiting room, my husband chose her emergency over ours. I did not scream, I did not beg him to look at his own son. I shifted Noah higher against my shoulder, opened my phone with one hand, and took a picture of the check-in screen above the nurse's desk. Time, date, patient order, Daniel's name beside Leo Collins as the adult responsible. Then I saved the photo because pain could wait, evidence could not. The first thing I remember from that night was the heat of my son's body. Noah was only 8 months old, still small enough to curl into the curve of my arm, but that night he felt impossibly heavy. His honesty was damp at the collar. His hair stuck to his forehead. Every breath came out in a tiny strained whimper that scraped something raw inside my chest. The pediatric ER was crowded, loud and too bright. A toddler cried near the vending machines. A father paced with a blanket over his shoulder. A teenage girl coughed into her sleeve while her mother argued quietly with the intake nurse. The air smelled like disinfectant, wet coats, and fear. I sat in a blue plastic chair with Noah against my chest and my diaper bag at my feet. I had already checked him in. I had already told the nurse his temperature. I had already texted Daniel 6 times. Noah's fever is 103.4. We're at Street Agnes Pediatric ER. Please hurry. He's not drinking. Daniel, answer me please. The last message had remained unread for 23 minutes. I told myself he was driving. I told myself maybe his phone was on silent. I told myself 100 small lies married women tell themselves when the truth is standing too close. Then the automatic doors opened. Daniel rushed in wearing the charcoal coat I had bought him for our anniversary. His hair was windblown, his jaw tight, his face filled with panic. For one foolish second, my whole body loosened with relief. Then I saw the child in his arms. Not Noah, Leo Collins. Mia's son had his arms around Daniel's neck, his cheek pressed against Daniel's shoulder like he belonged there. Mia came in behind them, pale and trembling in a cream sweater, one hand against her mouth as if she had barely survived the walk from the parking lot. Daniel did not look relieved to see me. He did not come to us first. He did not ask how high Noah's fever was. He walked straight to the nurse's desk. I called ahead. He said, Leo Collins, 6 years old, stomach pain, possible allergic reaction. The nurse looked at her screen. And you are, Daniel Hart, he said. I'm the emergency contact. The words moved through me slowly. Emergency contact. Noah whimpered against my neck. His skin was so hot that I could feel the fever through my sweater. I stood, my knees stiff from sitting too long, and walked toward the desk. Daniel, I said. He turned. Then, for half a second, guilt flashed across his face. Not shock, not confusion, guilt. That was how I knew this was not a mistake. Evelyn, he said too softly. Mia turned too, her eyes widened in that fragile glassy way she had perfected years ago. Oh my God, Evelyn, is Noah sick too? As if my baby had wandered into her emergency. I looked at Daniel. You got my messages. His grip tightened on Leo. I was going to call you back. You were going to call me back. Leo started vomiting. Mia said quickly. I panicked. I didn't know who else to call. Daniel's eyes flicked toward the nurse, toward the waiting room, toward anywhere but Noah. Can we not do this here? Noah coughed, a weak, wet sound. I shifted him higher and said, Our son has a fever of 103.4. Something changed in the nurse's expression. Her eyes dropped to Noah's flushed face. Did you already check him in? Yes, I said. Noah Hart, 8 months old, fever, refusing fluids, decreased wet diapers. The nurse typed fast. His on the board. Daniel finally looked at Noah properly. I watched recognition hit him, then discomfort, then calculation. Mia was alone. He said. I waited. That was his explanation, not an apology, not horror, not give me my son. Just Mia was alone. I felt something inside me go very still. For 4 years I had been the reasonable wife, the woman who understood late meetings, the woman who smiled when Daniel's mother praised him for being a provider while I handled every appointment, every bill, every fever, every grocery run, the woman who ignored how his voice softened whenever Mia called. Mia, who had no one. Mia, whose ex-husband was unreliable. Mia, whose son needed a male role model. Mia, who somehow always needed Daniel exactly when I needed him too. The nurse asked Daniel for Leo's insurance card. Daniel reached into his coat and handed it over. Not Mia. Daniel. I looked down at his hand and noticed he was holding a folded paper, intake forms already filled out. How long have you been here? I asked. He swallowed. We just got here. The check-in screen above the desk refreshed. Leo Collins 8:42 p.m. Noah Hart 8:16 p.m. I looked at the time on my phone, 8:47 p.m. 26 minutes. I raised my phone and took a picture. Daniel saw me do it. His face tightened. Evelyn. What? Don't start collecting things like this is some kind of case. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because he knew me well enough to be afraid. I'm not starting anything. I said, I'm remembering. Mia's hand fluttered to Leo's back. Daniel, maybe we should just go somewhere else. No, he said, still looking at me. Leo needs to be seen. Our son needs to be seen. I said. The nurse cleared her throat. We triage based on medical urgency. Exactly. Daniel said quickly. Leo may be having an allergic reaction. What did he eat? The nurse asked. Mia hesitated. I'm not sure. Any swelling, rash, trouble breathing? No, but he said his stomach hurt. The nurse looked at Leo. He looked tired and embarrassed, but he was alert. His color was normal. He was breathing fine. Then she looked at Noah, whose eyes had gone glassy again. I'm going to have someone recheck the baby's temperature. She said. Thank you. I said. Daniel shifted Leo in his arms. Evelyn, I can explain. Not right now. You're making this ugly. That sentence landed harder than I expected. I looked at him. I'm holding our feverish baby in an ER waiting room while you carry another woman's child. I didn't make this ugly. I just stopped covering it. His mouth parted. Mia began to cry. Of course she did. A nurse came around the desk with a thermometer and a small pulse oximeter. Mrs. Hart. I followed her to a side station. Daniel did not follow me. That was the second thing I remembered. Not the betrayal itself, not Mia's tears. Not even the way he said her name like a responsibility and mine like a problem. I remembered walking away with Noah while Daniel stayed at the desk with Leo. The nurse took Noah's temperature again. 103.8, she said, and her voice sharpened. My hand tightened around Noah's back. He's been refusing fluids. How many wet diapers today? 2 since morning. She looked toward the exam rooms. We're going to move him back. Relief and fear hit me at the same time. Behind me, Daniel said, Evelyn. I turned. He had finally set Leo down. Mia stood close to him, her shoulder nearly touching his arm. I'll come find you in a minute, he said. In a minute. I nodded once, because if I opened my mouth, something inside me might break loose. The nurse led me through the double doors. As we passed, I heard another nurse ask Daniel, are you the baby's father? Silence, a small silence, half a second, maybe less. But when your marriage is dying, you hear every pause. Then Daniel said, yes. I did not turn around. Inside the exam room, I laid Noah on the paper-covered bed. His little hands curled and uncurled, his lips trembled. He looked too small under the fluorescent lights, too vulnerable, too dependent on adults who were supposed to choose him first. A young doctor came in, introduced herself as Dr. Patel, and began asking questions. I answered every one. Fever onset, feeding, diapers, medication, allergies, birth history, pediatric. Daniel knew some of those answers. He was not there to give them. Dr. Patel ordered fluids, labs, and medication. A nurse brought a tiny hospital bracelet and wrapped it around Noah's ankle. I watched the printed name settle against his skin. Noah Hart, my son, not a symbol of my marriage, not a bargaining chip, not proof that Daniel and I had once loved each other, a child, a person, someone who deserved to be protected. My phone buzzed. Daniel, I'm sorry. Mia was scared. Leo needed me. I'll come soon. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. Then I took a screenshot. Noah cried when they placed the 4. It was a thin, exhausted cry. Not the furious kind he made when he was hungry or overtired. This one barely had enough force to fill the room. I leaned over him, pressing my cheek to his damp hair while the nurse taped the line to his tiny hand. I know, baby, I whispered. I'm here. His fingers curled around mine. I wanted to be only his mother in that moment, not a betrayed wife, not a woman calculating timelines while her child shook with fever, not a person watching the final shape of her marriage reveal itself under hospital lights. But motherhood does not give you the luxury of falling apart first. Dr. Patel returned with a tablet. We're going to start fluids and monitor him. His heart rate is high, which can happen with fever and dehydration. We'll wait for the labs. Is he going to be okay? We're taking it seriously, she said. You did the right thing bringing him in. The words almost undid me. You did the right thing. I had needed someone to say that, not because I doubted bringing Noah in, but because Daniel had trained me to question my own reactions. If I was upset, I was dramatic. If I asked for help, I was demanding. If I pointed out that Mia called too often, I was insecure. Now my son was lying on an ER bed with an 4 in his hand, and Daniel was somewhere in the same hospital with another woman. My phone buzzed again. Daniel, Leo is being checked now, I'll come after, I typed. Noah has an 4, fever went up, doctor is concerned. The message showed delivered, no reply. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The nurse, Carla, came in to check Noah's vitals. She was in her late 40s with tired eyes and a calm voice that made the room feel less sharp. Dad coming in? She asked, not unkindly. I looked at the door. Apparently, she paused just long enough to tell me she understood more than she was saying. Do you have someone else you want us to call? She asked. No. The answer came too quickly because there was my mother in Vermont 2 hours away. There was my friend Sophie who would have come if I asked. There was Daniel's sister Rachel, who loved Noah more sincerely than Daniel's parents did. But I had spent so long protecting Daniel's image that even in an emergency my first instinct was to isolate the damage. Carla adjusted the 4 line. You're listed as primary guardian. Daniel Hart is listed as spouse and secondary medical contact. Is that correct? The question felt routine. It was not. I looked at the tablet in her hand. He's still listed. Yes, he has access to updates, discharge instructions, billing coordination, and emergency decisions if you're unavailable. If you're unavailable, a cold thought opened inside me. If I had fainted in the parking lot, if I had been in an accident, if something happened to me, Daniel would be the person the hospital called. Daniel would decide. Daniel, who had seen his feverish baby and still chosen to stay with Mia. Can that be changed? I asked. Carla looked at me carefully. Yes, not through me, but through registration or patient administration because he's the father. Some things depend on legal custody, but access permissions and portal authorizations can be updated by the primary account holder. Primary account holder, that was me. I had created Noah's pediatric account. I had filled out the newborn paperwork, I had scheduled his vaccines, I had sat through lactation consultations and sleep regressions and insurance calls while Daniel attended urgent meetings that somehow always ran late on Mia's bad days. Can I do it tonight? Carla nodded. After his stable, I can ask someone from administration to come by. The door opened. Daniel stepped in. For a moment the room shrank around him. He looked handsome, worried, and out of place. His coat was still buttoned. His wedding ring caught the light as he pushed a hand through his hair. How is he? He asked. I watched him look at the 4, at Noah's flushed face at the monitor. He's dehydrated, I said. They're running labs. Daniel winced. God, Evelyn, I'm sorry. Where's Leo? With Mia. They're waiting for discharge instructions. So Leo is being discharged. He stiffened. They still had to check him. What was wrong? A stomach virus maybe, they're not sure. Not an allergic reaction. His eyes flashed. Mia was scared. And Noah, what? Was Noah not allowed to be scary? Daniel looked toward Carla, who pretended to focus on the monitor. Can we talk outside? No, Evelyn. Noah is the conversation. He exhaled slowly. I made a judgment call. A judgment call. Those words were so clean, so professional, so bloodless. You made a choice, I said. Mia had no one else. He has a mother. And Leo has no father who shows up. Noah did have a father who could show up, I said. He just showed up for someone else. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Fair. I said it softly enough that he almost missed the danger in it. He took a step closer. I'm here now. I looked down at Noah. His eyes were half open, unfocused. His hand twitched against the tape. Now is late. Daniel rubbed his forehead. I can't undo it. No, I said. You can't. The silence between us changed. He heard something final in my voice because his expression shifted from guilt to alarm. Don't do this, he said. Do what? Turn one bad night into a marriage-ending disaster. I almost admired the speed of it. He had already reduced the night to an argument, a misunderstanding, a bad night, something I was turning into something else. Carla's mouth tightened, but she said nothing. I reached into the diaper bag and pulled out my folder. Daniel used to tease me for carrying paper copies of important documents, insurance card, pediatrician information, vaccination record, emergency contacts. He said I was old-fashioned. I opened the folder and found the intake copy I had been given. When I checked Noah in time 8:16 p.m. guardian present, mother, father contacted, no response at time of intake. Then I opened my phone and showed Daniel the check-in photo. Leo Collins 8:42 p.m. Noah Hart 8:16 p.m. You arrived 26 minutes after I checked Noah in. I said. You did not come to him. You went to the desk for Leo. Daniel stared at the screen. You took a picture. Yes. Why would you do that? Because one day you were going to tell me I remembered it wrong. His face flushed. That was The closest thing to an admission I had ever received. Dr. Patel entered before he could answer. She glanced between us, sensed the tension, and turned to me. Mrs. Hart, Noah's responding to the fluids. We still want to observe him. His labs show dehydration, but nothing more alarming right now. That's good. My breath left my body. Thank you. Daniel moved closer to the bed. Hey buddy. Noah did not turn toward him. It was petty to notice. I noticed anyway. Daniel reached for Noah's foot, but I put my hand down first. He looked at me. What are you doing? He asked. Protecting him. I'm his father. Tonight you were Leo's emergency contact. His eyes hardened. You don't get to erase me because you're angry. No, I said. I get to update medical access because I'm awake. Dr. Patel looked at me, then at Daniel. If there are changes to patient authorization, administration can assist. Daniel's head snapped toward her. That's not necessary. I looked at the doctor. Please send them in. Daniel said my name like a warning. For years that tone had worked. It made me pause, smooth things over, wait until we got home, lower my voice, consider his stress that night, with my son's hospital bracelet around his ankle. It did nothing. I turned back to Noah and brushed my thumb over his warm cheek. Please send them in. I repeated. The hospital administrator arrived at 11:13 p.m. with a tablet, a clipboard, and the careful expression of a woman who had seen marriages collapse in waiting rooms before. Her name was Denise. She pulled a rolling stool beside Noah's bed and spoke in a low voice. Mrs. Hart, you requested changes to portal access and emergency contact permissions for your son. Yes. Daniel stood near the sink with his arms crossed. He had refused to leave. He said he had a right to be present. Dr. Patel had explained that unless he became disruptive, no one would physically remove him from his child's room, so he stayed. But staying was not the same as being in control. Denise confirmed my identity, Noah's date of birth, insurance information, and the pediatric account login. Then she opened the authorization section. Currently, Daniel Hart has shared portal access, billing access, discharge document access, and emergency medical contact status. She said, you are listed as the primary guardian and account manager. I want to remove shared portal access. I said, remove billing access, remove discharge document access, remove him as emergency contact, add my mother, Linda Morris, as secondary emergency contact. Daniel let out a sharp laugh. This is insane. Denise did not look at him. Mrs. Hart, do you understand that this affects hospital communication permissions? It does not terminate parental rights or legal custody. I understand. It means he will not be able to call and receive medical updates unless separately authorized or legally required. I understand. Daniel stepped forward. Evelyn, stop. Noah stirred. I laid my hand on his stomach. Keep your voice down, I said. You're punishing me through my son. I looked up at him. No, I'm protecting my son from your priorities. His mouth twisted. You think a form changes the fact that I'm his father? No, I said. The form changes what you can access without earning trust. Denise tapped something on the tablet. I'll need your signature. She handed it to me. Daniel moved as if to take it. Carla, who had been changing the forebag, stepped between us with the smoothness of someone pretending not to intervene. Sir, she said, please give her space. His face darkened for a second. I saw the man behind the public charm, the man who hated not being obeyed. Then he stepped back. I signed. My finger looked strange against the screen. Calm, steady, like it belonged to someone else. Denise printed the confirmation from a small mobile printer. The machine hummed, clicked, and pushed out a sheet of paper that felt heavier than a marriage certificate. Updated patient authorization, Noah Hart, primary contact, Evelyn Hart, secondary emergency contact. Linda Morris, removed authorized user, Daniel Hart, removed. The word sat there cleanly. Daniel stared at it. You'll regret this, he said quietly. That was when I knew he still did not understand. Regret belonged to people who acted too quickly. I had moved slowly for years. I had regretted quietly. I had regretted forgiving him after he missed our first anniversary dinner because Mia's car battery died. I had regretted laughing it off when he took Leo to a father-son baseball day because the kid needed it. I had regretted believing him when he said Mia was family, just not that kind of family. I had regretted in silence until regret became a room I lived in. This was not regret, this was a door. Denise left. Carla dimmed the lights. Noah finally slept. Daniel remained standing in the corner. For almost 20 minutes, neither of us spoke. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at it. I knew who it was before his face changed. Go, I said. He looked up. What? Mia is texting you. It's about Leo, of course. He shoved the phone into his pocket. You're being cruel, I nodded almost to myself. That's the word you use when I stop being useful. He frowned. What does that mean? It means when I paid the mortgage during your commission gap, I was supportive. When I hosted your clients, I was gracious. When I watched Leo so Mia could go to job interviews, I was kind. When I asked why you were at her apartment at midnight, I was jealous. When I removed you from a medical file after you abandoned our sick child, I became cruel. His face went pale around the mouth. I didn't abandon him. You walked past him. The sentence fell into the room and stayed there. Daniel looked at Noah. I saw him. Yes, I said. That's worse. He sat down then hard in the chair by the door. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost at 1:26 a.m. Noah's fever finally started to come down. Dr. Patel said we could likely go home before morning if he continued improving. I nodded, listened, asked questions, took notes. Daniel dozed in the chair. When discharge came at 3:08 a.m. Carla handed the papers to me. Only me. Daniel woke as I packed the diaper bag. We're leaving, he asked. Noah is discharged. Give me the papers, I'll pull the car around. I called a rideshare. He blinked. What? I'm not getting into a car with you tonight. That's ridiculous. It's 3 in the morning. Yes. We have a baby. I know. Then stop acting like this. I zipped the diaper bag slowly. Like what? Like I'm dangerous. I looked at him for a long moment. You are unreliable in emergencies. That is dangerous enough. He flinched. Good. Carla returned with Noah's final instructions. Fluids, fever medication as directed, watch wet diapers, follow up with his pediatrician in 24 to 48 hours. I will, I said. Daniel held out his hand. I should have a copy. Carla glanced at the chart. Sir, current authorization lists Mrs. Hart as the recipient of discharge instructions. His face froze. I'm his father. She remained calm. You'll need authorization for medical record access. He turned to me. There it was, the first real panic. Not when Noah cried, not when I said he had a fever, not when the doctor ordered fluids. Now, when the system no longer obeyed him. Evelyn, he said, tell her it's fine. I lifted Noah into my arms. His body was cooler now, still warm, but not burning. No, I said. The rideshare arrived at the emergency entrance 4 minutes later. I walked out under the cold white lights with my baby against my chest and the discharge folder tucked inside my coat. Daniel followed me onto the sidewalk. You're taking him home, he demanded. I'm taking him somewhere quiet. Where? I opened the car door. That is no longer emergency information you're entitled to. His face twisted. You can't just disappear with my son. I'm not disappearing, I'm documenting. I got into the car. As it pulled away, Daniel stood under the hospital awning, smaller than I had ever seen him. His phone lit up in his hand. This time when he called I declined, then I turned off location sharing. I did not go to our house that night. I went to Sophie's. She opened her door at 3:41 am wearing flannel pants, an old college sweatshirt, and the expression of a woman ready to commit a felony for her best friend. She took one look at Noah and stepped aside. Guest room, she said. Humidifier's already on. I put towels by the bed. Do you need tea, formula, a shovel, or all three? I almost cried, not because of the joke, because she did not ask me to explain before helping. I need sleep, I whispered. Then sleep. Noah woke every hour. Fever nights are not really nights. They are a series of alarms, damp cloths, medication syringes, whispered counting, and fear disguised as competence. By morning, my body felt hollow. Noah's temperature stayed lower. He drank a little. He smiled once at Sophie's orange cat, and that tiny smile felt like a sunrise. Daniel had called 18 times. He had texted 26. Where are you? This is childish. I need to know my son is safe. Mia feels terrible, by the way. You're blowing this up. My parents are asking questions. Call me before this gets worse. Evelyn, I'm sorry. Please. You can't keep Noah from me. I'm coming home. The shift from accusation to apology to threat was almost elegant. I screenshot everything. At 9:12 a.m. I called Noah's pediatrician and scheduled the follow-up. Then I called St. Agnes and confirmed the authorization changes. Then I called my mother. She did not interrupt once while I told her. When I finished, she said, "Do you want me to come?" "Yes, I'll be there by noon." That was it. No lecture, no marriage is hard, no think of the baby. My mother had loved Daniel once, in the cautious way mothers love sons-in-law who make their daughters smile. But she had also watched me become smaller over 4 years. By 10:30 I was ready to go home, not because I wanted to see Daniel, because I wanted documents. Sophie offered to come with me. I said no. This was my house, my marriage, my evidence, but I let her keep Noah. When I pulled into the driveway, Daniel's car was there, so was Mia's. For a moment I sat behind the wheel and stared. There are betrayals that knock you down, and then there are betrayals so blunt they clarify everything. Mia was in my home after the ER, after my baby's after Daniel had learned he was removed from Noah's medical file. He had brought her into my house. I pressed record on my phone and slipped it into my coat pocket. Then I walked in. They were in the kitchen. Mia sat at my island with both hands around a mug. Daniel stood beside her, too close. His hand was on the counter near her elbow. They looked like a couple waiting for bad news. My bad news. Mia stood quickly. Evelyn, I wanted to apologize. I looked at Daniel. Why is she in my house? He stiffened. Our house. My name is on the deed too. Answer me. Mia was worried. About Noah. Her eyes filled. Of course. Interesting. Did you ask to see him last night while he was being treated? Her mouth opened, closed. Daniel stepped forward. Don't interrogate her. I laughed once. It surprised all of us. Interrogate her, Daniel. She is drinking coffee in my kitchen after you left our baby in an ER waiting room for her son. I'm being polite. Mia's tears spilled over. I never meant to come between you. No, I said. You meant to stand close enough that Daniel would do it for you. Daniel slammed his mug down. Enough. There it was again, the command voice. I turned to him. No, he stared. No, I repeated. You don't get to use that tone with me anymore. Mia whispered. I should go. You should have gone years ago, I said. Daniel's face hardened. You're angry, I get it, but you don't get to rewrite our entire marriage because of one emergency. One emergency. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened my photos. This is Leo's school fundraiser. You told me you had a client dinner. He glanced at the picture and looked away. This is your Venmo payment to Mia for car repairs. This is the weekend you missed Noah's 6-month checkup because Mia's landlord was harassing her. This is last night when Noah checked in at 8:16 and Leo at 8:42. Mia's voice trembled. You've been keeping a file. I looked at her. Women like you rely on women like me being too embarrassed to keep records. Daniel stepped toward me. You sound paranoid. No, I sound done. The word changed the room. Daniel's anger faltered. Done with what? I walked past him to the hallway closet and pulled out a small suitcase. His eyes followed me. Evelyn. I went upstairs. He followed in. Our bedroom. The bed was unmade on his side. Mine was still neat from the morning before. I opened drawers and began packing clothes. Not everything. Enough. Daniel stood in the doorway. You're not leaving. I folded a sweater. I already left. You spent one night at Sophie's. Don't dramatize it. I turned. Noah had an 4 in his hand while you comforted Mia. His face tightened. Leo was sick too. Leo was discharged with a stomach virus. He's a child. So is Noah. He ran both hands through his hair. I made the wrong call. Fine. I admit it, but removing me from the hospital file, turning off location, packing bags, that's not normal. Neither is having your ex-girlfriend in your marital kitchen the morning after abandoning your son. She is not my ex-girlfriend. I stopped packing. Slowly I turned. What is she? He looked genuinely trapped. She's someone I care about. He said. There it was. Not love, not affair, not family friend. Someone I care about. A phrase soft enough to deny, intimate enough to destroy. I nodded and zipped the suitcase. He reached for my arm. I stepped back. Don't touch me. Pain crossed his face, but it was mixed with irritation, as if my boundaries inconvenienced him. I'm your husband. Then act like it's somewhere else. I walked to the dresser. My wedding ring sat in a small ceramic dish beside the baby monitor. I had taken it off at Sophie's when Noah spit up on my hand and I had not put it back on. Daniel saw me pick it up. His voice dropped. Evelyn. I placed the ring beside the monitor, not in the dish in the open. I'm not making a scene, I said. I'm making a record. Downstairs the front door closed. Mia had finally left. Too late. Daniel looked toward the sound, then back at me. That tiny glance told me more than any confession. Even now some part of him wanted to make sure she was okay. I pulled the suitcase handle up and walked past him. He did not stop me this time. At the front door, I paused and looked back at the house. The framed wedding photo in the hallway showed 2 people laughing under white roses. I remembered that day. I remembered believing joy was proof. It wasn't. Sometimes joy is only a photograph taken before the terms change. I left with the suitcase, the folder, my laptop, and the baby monitor. Daniel called after me from the porch. Where is Noah? I turned. He is with someone who came when called. The first transfer was $4.50. Mia Collins, memo, Leo soccer registration. I found it in Daniel's personal checking account, which was linked to our household budgeting app. Because I had set up the mortgage autopay years ago, He had never bothered to disconnect it. Daniel was careful with his image, careless with details he assumed I would never check. The second transfer was $1,200, Mia Collins, memo, rent help, temporary. The third was $280, Leo school supplies. The fourth was $3,600, no memo. I sat at Sophie's dining table with my laptop open, Noah asleep in the next room and a cup of coffee going cold beside my hand. My mother sat across from me reading each line as I exported the statements. She did not say "I told you." That was why I could keep going. By noon, I had found 17 payments over 14 months. Some came from Daniel's personal account, some came from the joint account, 2 came from the emergency savings account we had created after Noah was born. I stared at one of them for a long time. $900, Mia Collins, memo, pediatric deductible. The date was 3 weeks after Noah's birth, 3 weeks after my C-section, 3 weeks after I had sat on the bathroom floor, crying because the incision hurt and Noah would not latch, and Daniel had said he needed to clear his head with a drive. I had thought he went to the lake. Maybe he did. Maybe Mia lived near the lake. My mother reached across the table and touched my wrist. "Evelyn, I'm okay. You don't have to be. I do right now." She nodded, because she understood there would be time to shake later. First, I needed copies. I downloaded statements, saved PDFs, took screenshots, forwarded confirmation emails to a new address Daniel did not know existed. At 1:15 p.m. I called Avery Shaw. Avery had handled Sophie's divorce 2 years earlier. She was known for being calm, precise, and allergic to dramatic exaggeration. I liked her immediately. Her assistant gave me a consultation slot at 4. Daniel kept texting, "My parents are furious. This is humiliating. Mia won't stop crying. You need to call my mother. I want to see Noah tonight. You can't deny visitation. I know my rights." I answered one message, "Noah has a pediatric follow-up tomorrow. Communication about him can be by text only for documentation." He replied within seconds, "Documentation? Are you serious?" I took a screenshot. Then Mia texted me. I did not know she had my number until her name appeared. "Mia, Evelyn, I know you hate me right now, but Daniel is falling apart. He loves Noah. He loves you. Please don't make a permanent decision from postpartum emotions." Postpartum emotions. There are phrases designed to look gentle while cutting you down. I stared at the message, then laughed so hard my mother looked up in alarm. "What? She thinks calling me hormonal will help." My mother's expression went cold. "Forward that to the lawyer." I did. Avery's office was on the 6th floor of a brick building downtown, with frosted glass doors and no inspirational quotes on the walls. I appreciated that. Inspirational quotes felt insulting when you were carrying bank records and hospital discharge papers in a diaper bag. Avery was in her early 40s with sleek dark hair and reading glasses she wore on a chain. She listened without interrupting as I laid out the timeline. 8:16 p.m. Noah checked in. 8:42 p.m. Leo checked in. Daniel arrived with Leo. Daniel stayed with Mia. Noah received 4 fluids. Authorization removed at 11:19 p.m. Discharged at 3:08 a.m. Daniel denied access to discharge papers. Mia in my kitchen the next morning. 17 transfers. When I finished, Avery looked at the documents for several seconds, then she said, "You are not overreacting." I closed my eyes again. Those words almost broke me. Avery continued, "You need to decide what you want: separation, divorce, temporary custody orders, financial restraining order. We can move quickly, but I won't push you into a legal path you are not ready for." I opened my eyes. I want Noah safe. I want Daniel off medical access unless ordered otherwise. I want our joint accounts protected, and I want a divorce petition prepared. Avery nodded once. No surprise, no pity. Good, we start with temporary custody and financial disclosures. Do you believe Daniel will drain accounts? I used to think no. And now I think Mia has rent due. Avery almost smiled. Then we filed to preserve marital assets. She made a list: tax returns, mortgage documents, bank statements, credit card records, Noah's medical file, screenshots, any communication about Mia, any evidence Daniel represented himself as Leo's guardian. I paused. At the hospital, he told the nurse he was Leo's emergency contact. Avery looked up. "Is he?" "I don't know. We'll find out." If he signed documents accepting financial responsibility for another child while neglecting his own child's emergency care, that matters. Neglecting, the word made my stomach twist. Avery saw it. I'm not saying he legally neglected Noah, I'm saying the facts matter. Let the documents speak. That became the sentence I held on to. Let the documents speak, because if I spoke, Daniel would say I was emotional if I cried, Mia would say I was unstable if I yelled, his mother would say I was punishing him, but documents did not shake. Documents did not raise their voices. Documents did not get accused of postpartum jealousy. Documents stayed exactly where they were. When I left Avery's office, the sky was darkening. My phone buzzed as I stepped onto the sidewalk. Daniel, Mom wants us at dinner Sunday. We need to settle this as a family, the same family that had smiled while I cooked, hosted, cleaned, soothed, remembered birthdays, bought gifts, sent thank you cards, and made Daniel look like a better husband than he was. I typed back, I will attend. Noah will not. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Daniel, don't embarrass me. I looked at the message, then at the folder in my hand for the first time in 24 hours. I smiled. Too late. Daniel's mother believed every crisis could be solved at her dining table. Because her dining table was where she held court, Margaret Hart had a long mahogany table, linen napkins folded like fans, and a talent for making insults sound like concern. She had once told me 3 weeks postpartum that I looked brave for someone not bouncing back quickly. Daniel had laughed. I had smiled because I was holding Noah and too tired to bleed in public. That Sunday, I arrived alone. Margaret opened the door wearing pearls and a tight smile. Her eyes dropped to my empty arms. Where is the baby? With my mother. Her smile tightened. We are his family. Yes, I said, that is why I'm here. Daniel stood in the living room with his father, Richard, and his sister Rachel. He looked tired. Good. He also looked relieved to see me. That irritated me more than anger would have. Relief meant he still believed my presence was surrender. Rachel came forward first. She was younger than Daniel by 5 years and the only Hart who had ever asked how I was without glancing at Daniel for approval. Eve, she said softly, how's Noah? Better, fever's down. Follow-up went well. Her shoulders loosened. Thank God. Daniel's eyes flicked toward mine. You could have told me that directly. You received the update I sent. You sent one sentence. It contained the relevant medical information. Margaret inhaled sharply. This is exactly what we need to discuss. Dinner was roast chicken, green beans, potatoes, and judgment. For 15 minutes they pretended to be civilized. Richard asked about work. Rachel picked at her food. Daniel watched me like a man waiting for a door to reopen. Then Margaret placed her fork down. Evelyn, I understand you were frightened. A sick baby is frightening, but what you did to Daniel at the hospital was vindictive. There it was. I took a sip of water. What did I do to Daniel? You removed him from his own child's medical file. After he left his own child untreated in the waiting room. Daniel's voice tightened. Noah was checked in. Noah was waiting. Mia's son was sick. So was mine. Richard cleared his throat. Children get sick. Parents make imperfect decisions under pressure. I turned to him. Did you know Daniel arrived at the ER carrying Leo while Noah had a fever of 103.8? Margaret waved a hand. That number keeps changing. It went from 103.4 at home to 103.8 at triage. How convenient that you remember everything so precisely. I set my fork down. The room stilled. I reached into my bag and took out the folder. Daniel's face changed. Evelyn, he said quietly. I opened the folder. This is Noah's intake form. Check-in at 8:16 p.m. Guardian present. Mother, father contacted. No response. I placed it on the table. This is the photo of the ER check-in board. Leo Collins checked in at 8:42 p.m. Daniel was present with him. I placed that beside it. This is Noah's treatment summary. Fever, dehydration for fluids. Rachel leaned forward, her face paling. Margaret did not touch the papers. This is inappropriate. No, I said. What was inappropriate was your son telling me not to make a scene while our baby was being moved to an exam room. Daniel stood. Enough. I looked up at him. Sit down. The command left my mouth before I planned it. He froze for once. He obeyed. Rachel picked up the treatment summary. Her eyes moved quickly over the page. He needed fluids. Yes. She looked at Daniel. You didn't tell us that. Daniel rubbed his jaw. I didn't want to upset Mom. I laughed softly. You didn't want to upset Mom. How thoughtful. Margaret's face flushed. Do not take that tone in my house. Then don't invite me here to rewrite what happened. Richard looked at Daniel. Is this accurate? Daniel looked trapped again. I was beginning to recognize that look. It came whenever truth blocked every exit. I made a mistake, he said. Margaret seized on it. Exactly, a mistake, not a crime, not abandonment, a mistake. I turned another page. These are transfers to Mia Collins. The silence became physical. Daniel's chair scraped. Those are private. They came from accounts tied to our household budget. Margaret stared at the papers. What transfers? I read them calmly: rent, soccer registration, school supplies, pediatric deductible, car repair, no memo. Another no memo, 17 payments in 14 months. Rachel whispered, Daniel. Mia had been a ghost in our marriage. Suddenly she had numbers. Daniel's voice dropped. Mia needed help. From our emergency savings account. His face went red. Richard picked up the bank statement. This came from the joint account. 2 did, I said. 1 came from the account we opened after Noah was born. Margaret looked at Daniel, truly looked at him for the first time that night. Is that true? He said nothing. That was answer enough. I closed the folder. You all wanted this settled as a family. Here is the settlement. I will communicate with Daniel about Noah in writing. I will not restore hospital access right now. I have retained counsel. I am filing for divorce. Margaret gasped. Daniel stood so quickly his glass tipped over. Water spread across the table, soaking the edge of Noah's medical record copy. I moved it before the water reached the ink. Even then I protected the evidence. You're not filing for divorce, Daniel said. I looked at him. I am, over Mia, over you. That landed. His mouth opened, but no words came. The doorbell rang. Every head turned. Margaret, pale and furious, walked to the foyer. When she opened the door, Mia stood there with Leo beside her, holding a covered dish like she had been invited to a church potluck instead of the collapse of my marriage. Her eyes found Daniel first, then she saw me. Oh, she whispered. I didn't know Evelyn would be here. I smiled without warmth. Of course you didn't. Mia Collins was beautiful in the way fragile things are beautiful when everyone around them is careful not to touch too hard. She had soft brown hair, wide eyes, and a voice that always sounded close to breaking. Even standing in Margaret Hart's foyer with a casserole dish in her hands, she looked like the injured party. Leo stood beside her, staring at the floor. I felt sorry for him. None of this was his fault. Children do not choose the adults who build storms around them. Margaret recovered first. Mia, this is not a good time. Mia's lips trembled. Daniel said family dinner was tonight. I thought after everything, maybe I should apologize in person. Daniel closed his eyes. That was how I knew he had told her about dinner but not told her to stay away. Rachel stood from the table. You invited her. Daniel snapped. No. Mia looked wounded. You said your mother wanted everyone to calm down. Margaret turned on Daniel. You told her that. I was trying to manage the situation. I almost laughed again. Manage. Daniel did not love honesty, but he adored management. Managed the wife, managed the ex-girlfriend, managed the mother, managed the optics, managed the sick baby. Unless another woman cried louder, I stood and gathered my documents. Mia stepped forward. Evelyn, please, I know you think I'm the villain. I don't think you're the villain, I said. Hope flashed across her face. I think you're an adult woman who knew exactly which married man to call. The hope vanished. Leo shifted closer to her leg. I lowered my voice. I won't discuss this in front of your son. Something like shame crossed her face. Brief, quickly replaced by tears. Daniel moved toward her. I watched him do it. So did Rachel. So did his parents. One step, that was all it took. A single instinctive step toward Mia while his wife stood across the room with their child's hospital records in her bag. Rachel whispered, "Oh my God." Daniel stopped too late. Mia began to cry harder. I never asked him to choose me. I looked at her. No, you only created situations where choosing you looked noble. That's not fair. You called him because Leo had stomach pain. He was vomiting. You told Daniel it might be an allergic reaction. I was scared. Did Leo have trouble breathing? She looked away. Did he have swelling? No answer. Did he have a rash? Daniel said, Evelyn, stop. I turned on him. Did Noah have a fever? Yes, he said through his teeth. Was Noah dehydrated? Yes. Did Noah need 4 fluids? His jaw worked. Say it. Rachel's voice cut across the room. Daniel. He looked at his sister. She held Noah's treatment summary in her hand. Daniel exhaled. Yes. Mia wiped her cheek. I didn't know it was that bad. I looked at her. You saw me in the waiting room holding him. You didn't say. I told Daniel. He told you, didn't he? Her silence answered. Margaret sat down slowly as if her knees had failed. Richard looked older than he had 10 minutes ago. Daniel said, "This is pointless." "No," Rachel said, surprising all of us. "This is the first honest conversation we've had." Mia turned on her. "I didn't ruin anything." Rachel looked at Daniel. "No, he did." The room shifted again. I had not expected Rachel to stand with me. I had not needed it. But the truth, once released, has a way of choosing witnesses. Mia clutched the casserole dish. I should go. This time nobody stopped her, but as she turned, a folded paper slipped from her purse and landed near the entry rug. Leo reached for it, but Rachel was closer. She picked it up. Automatically, Mia froze. Rachel glanced down. Her expression changed. "What is this?" she asked. Mia reached out. "It's private." Rachel stepped back. "It has Daniel's name on it." Daniel went still. I walked over. Rachel handed it to me. It was a school emergency contact form for Leo's private elementary program. Under parent or authorized adult, Mia's name was listed first, Daniel Hart was second, relationship to child, family friend, financial responsibility acknowledged, Daniel Hart. I looked up. Daniel's face had gone gray. Mia whispered, "It was just for school, they needed someone local." I held up the form. "You signed financial responsibility for her son's school." Daniel said nothing. Margaret made a sound I had never heard from her before, not anger, fear, because family embarrassment was one thing. Financial liability was another. I folded the paper carefully and placed it in my folder. Mia lunged. "That's mine." I stepped back. "It fell in front of witnesses. I'll make a copy and return it through counsel." Daniel's voice was low. "Evelyn." I looked at him for the first time. He looked afraid of me, not because I was cruel, not because I was emotional, because I was calm. "I came here tonight," I said, "to tell your family the truth. Thank you both for bringing more of it." Mia's tears stopped. There she was. For one clean second, the helpless mask slipped, her eyes sharpened, her mouth tightened. She looked not broken, but furious. Then Leo tugged her sleeve and she became soft again. "Come on, baby," she whispered. They left. Daniel followed them to the door with his eyes, but this time he did not move. I turned to Margaret and Richard. "I will not discuss this further without my lawyer." Margaret's voice shook. "Evelyn, divorce is serious. So is leaving a baby in an emergency room." Richard looked at his son. "Daniel, what have you done?" Daniel stared at me. The answer was in his eyes. He still thought the worst thing he had done was get caught. I took a document from my bag and placed it on the table. Temporary separation notice, communication terms, financial preservation request. Avery had drafted it that afternoon. Daniel picked it up as if it might burn him. "You planned this before coming here?" "Yes." "You set me up?" "No," I said. "I gave you a table, witnesses, and enough rope." His hand tightened around the paper. I walked to the door. Behind me, Margaret began to cry. Richard asked Daniel about the school form. Rachel said my name, but I did not turn until I reached the porch. She followed me. "Outside, Eve," she said. "I'm sorry. The night air was cold. I could see my breath." "For what?" "For not seeing it." I looked at her. Rachel's eyes were wet, but she was not asking me to comfort her. That mattered. "You saw it tonight," I said. "That's more than most people do." She swallowed. "If you need me to say what happened at dinner, I will." I nodded. "Thank you." As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "You don't know what you're doing." I looked back through the window. He stood in the dining room under the chandelier, surrounded by the family he had tried to use against me, holding the separation notice like a man reading his own verdict. I typed back, "Yes, I do." Daniel did not believe in consequences until they arrived on letterhead. On Monday morning, Avery filed the petition for divorce, a request for temporary custody orders, and a motion to preserve marital assets. By Monday afternoon, Daniel had called me 12 times, emailed me twice, and sent one message so long I had to scroll. I read none of it immediately. Noah had a follow-up with his pediatrician. His fever was gone. His appetite was coming back. He slapped both hands against the exam table paper and laughed when it crinkled. The sound nearly split me open. Dr. Emerson, his pediatrician, reviewed the ER discharge summary and asked gently, "Any concerns since Saturday?" "Medically, no," I said. She looked up from the chart. "And otherwise?" I appreciated the kindness. I also appreciated that she did not pry. I updated his hospital authorization. I said, "I want to make sure your office reflects the same." She nodded. "We can review that before you leave." There it was again, a system that responded to action, not tears, not explanations, action at the front desk. I removed Daniel's portal access from the pediatrician's office too. The receptionist handed me a printed confirmation. I added it to the folder. By the time I reached Avery's office, Daniel was already there. He stood in the conference room wearing a navy suit and the expression of a man who had decided to be reasonable for strategic purposes. His lawyer, a silver-haired man named Grant Bell, sat beside him. Avery leaned toward me as I sat. "You okay?" "Yes." Daniel watched me carefully. "How is Noah?" "Better." His face tightened at the shortness of the answer. "I'm glad." I said nothing. Grant cleared his throat. "We're hoping to avoid unnecessary hostility. Mr. Hart loves his son and wants normal access restored, including medical information. Avery opened her folder. Mrs. Hart is willing to provide relevant medical updates in writing given the events of Saturday night. Unrestricted portal access is not appropriate at this time. Daniel leaned forward. I made one mistake. I looked at him. You keep saying one. Avery slid a packet across the table. 17 financial transfers to MS Collins, she said. A signed financial responsibility form for MS Collins's child. Multiple documented occasions of Mr. Hart missing childcare or medical responsibilities for Noah while assisting MS Collins. The ER event is not isolated. Grant's expression barely changed, but his hand moved toward the packet. Daniel did not touch it. Those payments were temporary, he said. Did your wife know about them? Avery asked. He looked at me. No, he said. Did you use joint funds? His jaw tightened. A small amount. Did you use emergency savings established after Noah's birth? Grant looked at him sharply. Daniel said. I intended to replace it. I smiled faintly. Everyone saw. Daniel's eyes flashed. What? You intended to replace it? I said. Like you intended to call me back. Avery's foot nudged mine under the table. Not a warning, a reminder. Let the documents speak. I sat back. Grant adjusted his glasses. Financial matters can be addressed separately. Our immediate concern is that Mrs. Hart has unilaterally restricted a father from information about his child. Avery nodded. After that father prioritized another child's non-critical complaint over his infant son's high fever and dehydration. Daniel's hand hit the table. Leo was sick. Avery did not blink. Leo was discharged without acute distress. Noah required 4 fluids. Grant turned a page. We don't have Leo's medical record. No, Avery said. But we have Mr. Hart's text stating Leo had a stomach virus. We also have his message saying, Mia was scared Leo needed me. We do not have any message from him asking whether Noah needed him until after authorization was removed. Daniel looked at me with something like betrayal. It was almost funny. He had expected his words to disappear after he sent them. He had expected marriage to be a shredder. Avery continued. Mrs. Hart is requesting temporary primary physical custody, scheduled visitation, communication through a parenting app, no removal of the child from the county without written consent, and no access to medical portals until further order. Daniel stared. A parenting app? You want me to talk to my wife through an app? I looked at him. No, I want you to talk about Noah through an app. I'm not a criminal. I didn't say you were. You're treating me like one. I'm treating you like someone who lies when there's no record. His face hardened. Grant put a hand slightly out, stopping him before he spoke. Smart man. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. Daniel asked for overnight visits. Avery said not until Noah was older and until Daniel completed an infant care refresher session. Given his limited actual caregiving history, Daniel was insulted. I remembered every night I had walked the hallway with Noah while Daniel slept through cries he claimed he never heard. Daniel asked for medical access. Avery offered written updates. Daniel asked to come to Noah's appointments. I said no for now. He turned to me, voice low. You're trying to erase me. I looked at him across the polished table. No, I said, you did that in the ER. I'm just making the paperwork accurate. He flinched. When the meeting ended, Grant asked to speak with Daniel privately. Avery and I stepped into the hallway. My legs shook the moment the door closed. Avery noticed. That was normal. It didn't feel normal. It never does the first time. How many times will there be? As many as it takes to build a life he can't enter without permission. I held on to that. In the lobby, Daniel caught up with me. Evelyn. I stopped but did not turn fully. He looked less polished now. Can we talk without lawyers? No. 5 minutes. No. His voice cracked. I missed him. I looked at him then. For the first time since the hospital, he looked like Noah's father instead of Mia's rescuer. Tired, afraid, human. That almost hurt worse. You missed him when you were in the same ER. I said. His eyes reddened. I know. Do you? I panicked. Mia called. And Leo was crying, and I thought you had it handled because you always have it handled. There it was. The most honest thing he had said. Because you always have it handled. Not because Noah was fine, not because I did not need him, because I had trained him to believe my strength meant he was free to spend his tenderness elsewhere. I nodded slowly. That's why this had to happen. What? I had to stop handling what you broke. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. His hand fell. Evelyn, please. Noah's next update will be through the app once it's set up. I walked away. Behind me his phone rang. I did not look back. But I heard him answer. Mia, I can't talk right now. A pause, then softer. Don't cry. I kept walking. The invitation came in a cream envelope with the St. Agnes logo embossed at the top. Annual Children's Health Fundraising Gala, honoring community partners and donors. I almost threw it away before Noah. I had worked as a contract event strategist for the St. Agnes Foundation. I knew the gala well. I knew the donor seating chart mattered more than the floral arrangements. I knew Daniel's company, Hartwell Medical Systems, had been trying to strengthen its relationship with the hospital network for 2 years. I also knew Daniel would be there. Then Avery called. Interesting thing, she said. Daniel's company is listed as a sponsor for the gala. I know. Were you involved in that relationship? I introduced him to 2 foundation contacts before I got pregnant. Of course you did. I looked at the invitation. You think I should go? I think if you want to attend an event you helped build, you shouldn't stay home because he might be uncomfortable. That was not quite advice, it was permission, so I went. Not for revenge, not exactly. I went because for years Daniel had walked into rooms on bridges I built and acted as if he had constructed the city. The gala was held in the hospital's glass atrium. White lights hung from the ceiling. Round tables filled the space where families usually rushed through with coffee cups, discharge bags, and tired children. A string quartet played near the donor wall. I wore a black dress with long sleeves, simple earrings, and no wedding ring. The absence felt louder than jewelry. People recognized me. Foundation staff hugged me. One donor asked when I was returning to event work. I smiled and said, soon. Then Daniel arrived with Mia. For a second, the room slowed. He wore a tuxedo. She wore a pale blue dress that made her look delicate and expensive. Her hand rested lightly on his arm, not quite possessive enough to be undeniable, not innocent enough to be accidental. Several people looked at me. I saw the story forming in their eyes. Wife absent, husband arrives with another woman, maybe separated, maybe complicated, maybe the wife is difficult. Mia saw me and immediately removed her hand. Daniel did not. He crossed the room toward me, controlled panic under his polite expression. What are you doing here? He asked. I looked around the atrium. Attending. This is a work event. It's a hospital event. Mia stepped closer. Evelyn, I didn't know you'd be here. You say that often. Daniel lowered his voice. Don't make a scene. I looked at him and smiled. You brought your scene with you. His face tightened before he could answer. Dr. Patel approached. She wore a green dress and looked startled but pleased to see me. Mrs. Hart, how's Noah? Much better, thank you for asking. I'm glad. Her eyes flicked briefly to Daniel, then to Mia, then back to me. Doctors are trained not to react. She almost succeeded. Daniel extended his hand. Dr. Patel, Daniel Hart, Noah's father. She shook it politely. Yes, we met briefly. Briefly, a perfect word. Mia smiled. You treated my son too, Leo Collins. Dr. Patel nodded. I hope he recovered well. He did, Mia said. Thank you, it was such a scary night. The sentence drifted into the air like perfume. Several nearby donors heard it. Daniel's shoulders tensed. I took a sip of sparkling water. Dr. Patel looked at me. She knew not everything, but enough. The foundation director, Claire Benson, stepped onto the small stage and tapped the microphone. The program began. Speeches about pediatric access, donor generosity, community care, the importance of showing up for children in crisis. I almost admired the universe's sense of timing. Daniel was scheduled to speak on behalf of Hartwell Medical Systems. I had not known that. When Claire introduced him, Daniel walked to the stage with practiced humility. Mia sat at a sponsor table near the front. I stood near the back beside a tall arrangement of white lilies. Daniel began well. He spoke about technology, pediatric support, and parents facing frightening nights. Then he said, as a father, I know there is nothing more important than being there when your child needs you. The room applauded. My hand tightened around my glass, not from grief, from decision. I set the glass down. Daniel continued. Recently, my own family had a health scare, and it reminded me how vital hospitals like St. Agnes are. My own family, the lie was small enough to pass. That was what made it dangerous. I walked toward the stage, not quickly, not dramatically, just steadily. Claire saw me and blinked. Daniel saw me a moment later. His sentence faltered. I stopped near the front, not on the stage. I did not need the microphone, but the room had already quieted. Daniel, I said. Which child were you there for? The silence that followed was complete. His face drained. Evelyn. Claire whispered. Mrs. Hart. I looked at her. I apologize for interrupting your program. I care deeply about this hospital. That is why I won't stand quietly while a sponsor uses fatherhood as branding after abandoning his feverish infant in this ER. A sound moved through the room. Mia stood. That's not true. Dr. Patel did not move, but her face changed. Daniel stepped down from the stage. Stop. I opened my clutch and removed one folded page, not the whole file, just the timeline. Noah Hart checked into the pediatric ER at 8:16 p.m. with a fever of 103, for later 103.8 dehydration and decreased wet diapers. Daniel Hart arrived at 8:42 p.m. carrying Leo Collins, the son of Mia Collins. He proceeded with Leo's intake while Noah waited. Mia's voice shook. Leo was sick. Yes, I said, and he was discharged without acute distress. Noah received 4 fluids. Daniel whispered, "You're destroying me." I looked at him. No, I'm correcting the record. Claire's face had gone pale. Around us, donors were staring, staff members exchanged looks. Grant Bell, Daniel's lawyer, appeared near the side entrance and looked like he wanted the floor to open. Nurse Carla was there too. I had not seen her before. She stood beside the registration desk, arms folded. Our eyes met. She gave the smallest nod. Daniel saw it. That nod frightened him more than my words, because I was no longer alone with the truth. Mia took a step toward me. You're humiliating him because he helped a child. I turned to her. No, I'm exposing him because he used my silence to look honorable. Her lips parted. And you, I continued, used your child's discomfort to pull a married man away from his sick infant, then entered my home the next morning and called my reaction postpartum emotions. Someone gasped. Mia's face changed. I was trying to help. You were trying to win, Daniel said. Enough. I looked back at him. That word no longer works on me. For a moment nobody moved, then Claire stepped forward, voice tight but professional. We're going to take a brief pause in the program. The quartet stopped playing. Daniel stood in front of the stage, exposed and furious. I turned to leave. He grabbed my wrist. It was not hard, but it was public, and it was enough. Carla moved first, so did a security guard near the donor wall. I looked down at Daniel's hand on my wrist, then I looked up at him. Let go. He did, but everyone had seen. Mia covered her mouth. Daniel's company vice president turned away. Claire looked devastated in the way event directors look when a sponsor becomes a liability. I walked out through the glass doors into the cold night air. Daniel followed me halfway. Evelyn. I kept walking. Behind me, I heard Mia call his name. He stopped. Even then, even after everything, he stopped, and that was the last time I needed proof. The next morning, Daniel's company removed photos from the gala from its social media page. By noon, the hospital Foundation issued a bland statement about reviewing sponsor alignment with institutional values. By evening, Daniel texted me, "You made your point." I looked at Noah, who was sitting on Sophie's rug trying to chew the ear of a stuffed rabbit, and thought, no, I had not made my point. I had only stopped letting him make his. Avery called the next day with news. Grant wants an emergency settlement conference. Why? Because Daniel's employer is asking questions, his parents are asking questions, and Mia may have exaggerated Leo's condition that night. I sat up straighter. What does that mean? It means Grant accidentally forwarded an email chain he probably meant to summarize. Mia texted Daniel before going to the ER. She wrote, "He threw up once. I know it's probably nothing, but if I say allergic reaction they'll take us seriously." I closed my eyes. There it was, the sentence that turned fear into strategy. Avery continued. Daniel replied, "I'm coming, don't drive alone." Did he know Noah was sick then? What time did you text him first? 7:58. He replied to Mia at 8:03. I stood and walked to the window because sitting still was suddenly impossible. He knew, I said. Yes, he knew before he went to her. Yes, the truth did not arrive like thunder, it arrived like a lock clicking open. Daniel had not been caught between two emergencies. He had chosen the one that made him feel needed, heroic, central. With me, he was expected to be a father. With Mia, he got to be savior. Avery's voice softened. Evelyn, this helps your custody argument. It also helps establish pattern and judgment. Pattern and judgment, legal words, clean words. Underneath them was a baby with an 4 in his hand. The emergency settlement conference took place 2 days later. This time, Daniel looked wrecked. Not just tired, wrecked. His tie was slightly crooked. His eyes were bloodshot. Grant sat beside him with the stiff posture of a man containing a client who had become unpredictable. Mia was not there. Avery placed the email chain on the table. Daniel looked at it and went still. Grant sighed. "We are not conceding interpretation." Avery raised an eyebrow. Interpretation? Grant said nothing. I read the message aloud. He threw up once. I know it's probably nothing, but if I say allergic reaction they'll take us seriously. Daniel flinched. I looked at him. You got this after I told you Noah had a fever. His lips moved before sound came. I thought you could handle it. Yes. My voice was calm. That surprised me. You thought I could handle our baby suffering alone. So you could be important to Mia. His eyes filled. I didn't think of it like that. That is the problem. Grant leaned in. Mr. Hart recognizes the seriousness of the situation and is willing to agree to structured visitation while rebuilding trust, Avery said. With conditions. Daniel looked at me. What conditions? I opened my folder. Parenting app only, infant care class, no contact between Noah and Mia Collins, no use of Noah's image or medical information with your company, family, or social media, no access to medical portals until reviewed, full financial disclosure, reimbursement of joint funds transferred to Mia, temporary support according to guidelines, and written acknowledgement of the ER timeline. Daniel stared at me as if I had spoken another language. You want me to write that I abandoned him? I want you to write what you did. I can't. Then don't. A judge can read the documents. His hands clenched. You hate me. I considered that it would have been easier if I did hate. Is energetic, it gives you something hot to hold, but what I felt was colder. I don't trust you, I said. That matters more. He looked down for the first time. Daniel had no argument ready. Grant asked for a break. He and Daniel stepped into the hallway. Through the glass I could see Daniel pacing. Grant spoke sharply. Daniel shook his head. Grant pointed at the papers. Daniel put both hands on the wall and bent his head. Avery leaned toward me. He's realizing this isn't a marital argument anymore. What is it? A record. I watched Daniel through the glass for years. I had wanted him to understand my pain. I had imagined speeches, apologies, nights where he finally saw me. But sitting there, I realized understanding was not required for freedom. He did not have to fully understand. He only had to stop having access. When they returned, Daniel's face was gray. I'll agree to the parenting app, he said, and the class and financial disclosure. Avery waited, his throat moved, and no contact with Mia around. Noah, I nodded, and reimbursement, Avery asked. Daniel looked sick. Yes, medical access. He looked at me. There was the old plea, the one that used to work because it made me feel cruel for refusing. Evelyn, he said, please, I'm his father. I should know if he's sick. You will receive updates from an app. Yes, that's humiliating. No, I said. Humiliating is learning your husband is listed as financial backup for another woman's child while your own baby is in the ER. Grant closed his eyes. Daniel swallowed, then he nodded once. The written acknowledgement came an hour later. It was stiff and lawyerly, but it contained the facts. I was informed Noah Hart had a fever before I arrived at St. Agnes. I arrived at the pediatric ER with Leo Collins. I did not immediately go to Noah or assist Evelyn Hart with Noah's intake or care. Noah later required 4 fluids. I understand Evelyn Hart's concern regarding my judgment that evening. Not perfect enough. I signed the temporary agreement as we left. Daniel followed me to the elevator. I ended things with Mia, he said. I pressed the down button. I did not ask what things, he continued, desperate now. I told her I can't be her person anymore. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. He put a hand against the door to keep it from closing. Does that mean anything to you? I looked at him. Yes, I said. Hope broke across his face. It means you knew what she was. The hope died. I pressed the button for the lobby. He removed his hand. The doors closed. Between us, the courthouse smelled like old paper, wet wool, and coffee. I arrived with Avery at 8:35 a.m. My mother stayed home with Noah. I wore a gray suit I had bought before my wedding. Back when I still worked full-time and believed competence could protect a woman from heartbreak. Daniel was already there. So were his parents. Margaret looked smaller outside her own dining room. Richard stood beside her, silent and grim. Rachel came alone and crossed the hallway when she saw me. Eve, she said. I gave Avery my statement. I know, thank you. She swallowed. Daniel isn't speaking to me. I'm sorry. I'm not. She glanced at her brother. Not today. Mia arrived 10 minutes later with a lawyer I did not recognize. She wore black as if attending a funeral. Maybe she was. The death of a useful illusion deserves a dress code. Daniel did not look at her. She noticed. Her face tightened. The hearing was not dramatic in the way people imagine court to be. No shouting, no surprise witness bursting through the doors, no judge slamming a gavel with righteous fury. It was worse for Daniel because it was orderly. Order does not care about charm. Avery presented the timeline. Grant objected to certain characterizations. The judge asked precise questions. Daniel answered carefully until carefulness trapped him. Mr. Hart. The judge said, "Were you aware your infant son had a fever before you arrived at the emergency room?" Daniel looked at Grant. Grant could not answer for him. "Yes," Daniel said. "Did you arrive with another child?" "Yes." "Did you immediately go to your infant son?" A pause. "No." "Why not?" Daniel's hands folded and unfolded. "I believed Mrs. Hart had already checked him in and that Leo Collins needed immediate attention." The judge looked at the file. Leo Collins had vomited once. Daniel's face reddened. "That is what I later learned." "Were you told it might be an allergic reaction?" "Yes." "By Ms. Collins?" "Yes." "Did you verify symptoms before prioritizing that situation?" "No." The judge made a note. No. Theatrical condemnation could have cut deeper than that, pen moving across paper. Mia was questioned about the text. Her lawyer tried to frame it as panic. Avery framed it as manipulation. The judge simply asked Mia to read her own words aloud. Mia's voice shook. "He threw up once. I know it's probably nothing, but if I say allergic reaction they'll take us seriously." The courtroom was silent. I looked at Daniel. His eyes were fixed on the table. There are moments when a person's self-image collapses. Quietly, Daniel had spent years believing he was kind, generous, needed, a man with a big heart trapped between demanding women. But the record showed something else. A man who mistook being wanted for being good. A man who took from the dependable to feed the helpless act. A man who risked his own child's safety because another woman knew which words would summon him. When it was my turn to speak, I stood. Avery had prepared me. "Answer only what is asked. Stay factual. Do not over-explain. Do not perform pain. For people who may not reward it." The judge asked, "Mrs. Hart, why did you remove Mr. Hart from the hospital authorization file?" I took a breath. "Because that night showed me he could be physically present and still fail to prioritize Noah. I was the only parent managing Noah's emergency care. I needed medical communication to go through someone who would respond based on Noah's needs, not on another adult's emotions." Daniel closed his eyes. The judge asked, "Are you seeking to prevent Mr. Hart from having a relationship with Noah?" "No, I'm seeking structure until his choices are reliable." That was the truth, a cleaner truth than rage. By noon, temporary orders were entered. Primary physical custody remained with me. Daniel received scheduled daytime visitation twice a week, supervised at first by a mutually agreed professional for transition, then reviewable communication through the parenting app. No contact between Noah and Mia, medical updates through the app. No portal access pending further order. Financial preservation continued. Joint funds transferred to Mia were to be accounted for and reimbursed subject to final division. Daniel sat very still while the judge read. Margaret cried silently. Mia left before the hearing fully ended. Rachel squeezed my hand in the hallway afterward and then went to stand beside her father, not her brother. Daniel followed me outside into the pale courthouse light. Avery walked a few steps behind me, close enough to intervene. "Evelyn," he said. I stopped. He looked broken, not attractively broken, not romantically devastated, just like a man who had finally reached the wall and discovered it was made of his own choices. "I called the hospital yesterday," he said. "I waited. I wanted to ask about Noah's vaccination schedule. They wouldn't tell me." "I know." I said I was his father. I looked at him, and they said," his voice cracked, "they said I wasn't authorized. The sentence hung between us months earlier. That might have hurt me. I might have softened. I might have called the office and added him back because pain in Daniel's voice had once felt like my responsibility. Now I heard only the echo of a door I had closed to protect my son." "That is correct," I said. His eyes filled. "Do you know what that felt like?" I looked at him for a long moment. "Yes," I said. "It felt like sitting in an ER while your child needed help and the person who should have been beside you chose someone else." He flinched as if I had slapped him. "I did not apologize," he whispered. "I don't know how to fix this." "You don't. There has to be something. There is. Be a safe father during the time you're given. Tell the truth. Stop making women manage your guilt." His mouth trembled. "And us?" he asked. I almost smiled, but there was no joy in it. "There is no us." He looked toward Avery, as if she had coached me into cruelty. She had not. I had grown into clarity all by myself. Daniel said, "I loved you." "I know," I said, "but not enough to choose us when choosing mattered." I walked away. This time he did not follow. 6 months later, Noah took his first steps in my new apartment. Not Daniel's house, not Sophie's guest room, mine. The apartment had morning light, creaky floors, and a kitchen barely large enough for 2 adults to stand in at once. I loved it with an intensity that surprised me. Every corner held something chosen after the break: a blue rug Noah liked to crawl across, a bookshelf I assembled badly and kept anyway, a small framed print near the door that said, "Nothing inspirational at all, just color, just mine." My mother visited often. Sophie lived 15 minutes away. Rachel came every other Saturday with board books and soft toys and a careful respect for boundaries that made me trust her more over time. Daniel completed the infant care course. He never admitted how much that humiliated him, but I saw it in the clipped messages he sent through the parenting app. Over time, the messages improved. Noah ate well today, changed diaper at 2:10, he seemed tired so I shortened the park visit. Please confirm rash cream brand. Factual, useful about Noah. That was all I had asked for. His supervised visits became unsupervised daytime visits. He was not a monster. That mattered. He loved Noah in the limited, learning way of a man who had mistaken biology for competence and was now discovering the difference. But he did not get medical portal access back. Not yet, maybe not ever without a court order. He asked twice. The answer remained no. Mia disappeared from his life with less grace than she had entered it. The financial responsibility form caused problems at Leo's school. Daniel's reimbursement obligation caused problems with Mia. Once Daniel stopped paying, her helplessness turned sharp. Rachel told me only what was necessary. She said some ugly things. Daniel finally heard them. I did not ask for details. I did not need Mia punished theatrically. Her consequence was simple. She lost access to a man she had trained to rescue her, and Daniel lost the fantasy that rescuing her made him noble. The divorce finalized on a rainy Thursday. Avery sat beside me in the conference room. Daniel sat across from me with Grant. There was no family audience this time. No chandelier, no hospital lights, no crying woman at the door, just paper, property division, reimbursement, parenting schedule, medical boundaries, communication rules, final signatures. Daniel stared at the last page for almost a minute. Then he signed. I signed after him. My hand did not shake when it was done. Grant gathered his copies. Avery placed mine in a folder. Daniel remained seated. "Can I have a minute?" he asked. Avery looked at me. I nodded. The lawyers stepped out but left the glass door partly open. Daniel looked older than he had at the ER, less certain, less polished, maybe better, maybe just tired. "I went back to Street Agnes last week," he said. I stayed quiet. For a follow-up meeting with the hospital foundation. Hartwell lost the sponsorship, but we're trying to repair the relationship. Of course, there was always a relationship to repair once public damage was involved. He swallowed. I saw the pediatric waiting room. My chest tightened, but I said nothing. I sat there for a while after the meeting in one of those blue chairs. His eyes reddened. "I kept thinking about you holding him, about me walking past." The old Evelyn would have comforted him. She would have said, "You made a mistake." She would have given him language to survive himself. I let silence do what silence does. It made him sit with his own words. Finally he said, "I am sorry, not Mia, not you always had it handled, just sorry." I believed him. It changed nothing. "Thank you," I said. He looked at my left hand. No ring. There had not been one in months. "Do you ever think," he stopped then tried again, "do you ever think if I had gone to Noah first we'd still be married?" I considered lying out of mercy. No, mercy had kept me trapped too long. "I think if you had gone to Noah first I might not have seen the truth that night," I said. "But the truth was already there." He nodded slowly, tears spilling now. "I hate that, I know. I hate that I became this person." I stood and picked up my folder. "You didn't become him in one night, Daniel. I just stopped denying him in one night." He lowered his head. I left the room. Outside, rain streaked the courthouse steps. Avery walked beside me under a black umbrella. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it. Not happy. Happiness felt too simple. "Clear," I said. She smiled. "Clear is underrated." That afternoon I took Noah to his pediatric appointment. It was routine: height, weight, vaccines, a few tears, a sticker he immediately tried to eat. At the front desk the receptionist asked, "Any changes to authorized contacts?" I looked at the printed form. Primary, Evelyn Morris. Hart, secondary, Linda Morris. Emergency backup, Sophie Grant. Medical portal, Evelyn Morris. Hart. Daniel's name was not there, not because he had no role in Noah's life, because access was no longer assumed. It was earned, limited, and documented. "No changes," I said. Noah babbled in my arms, reaching for my necklace. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sidewalk shone silver. I buckled Noah into his car seat and stood for a moment beside the open door. Breathing in the clean, wet air, my phone buzzed. Parenting app notification: Daniel, confirming Saturday visit at 10 a.m. I will bring the car seat base and return him by 2 p.m. Hope his appointment went well. I read it twice, then I replied, confirmed, appointment went well, mild fever possible after vaccines, instructions. Attached, I attached the pediatrician's general after vaccine sheet. Not the full portal, not open access. Not marriage disguised as co-parenting, information, boundaries, peace. I got into the driver's seat. Noah made a sleepy sound behind me in the mirror. I saw his eyelids drooping, his cheeks soft and healthy, his tiny hand wrapped around the edge of his blanket. The night at the ER would always exist. I could not erase the blue chairs, the check-in board, Daniel's pause when the nurse asked if he was Noah's father. I could not erase the heat of Noah's fever or the coldness that entered me when I signed Daniel off the file. But I no longer lived inside that night. I had carried my son out, I had carried the truth out, I had carried myself out, and when the hospital doors closed behind me, something else opened. A life where love did not mean silence, a life where motherhood did not mean tolerating betrayal for the sake of appearances, a life where my child's safety did not depend on a man's mood, guilt, or need to be admired. At a red light, I looked again at Noah in the mirror. He was asleep now, peaceful, one small fist near his mouth. I've got you, I whispered, and for the first time in years I knew I had myself too.